If you had a choice between living in our society as you are right now, or living life as a member of an uncontacted tribe somewhere in the Amazon rainforest, which life would you choose? Now, if you have to think about that for even 1 second, then I think that we might have a little problem. Because I would think that an advanced society versus a primitive society would mean that the people in the advanced society would certainly prefer it. But that is clearly not the case. So why would people even consider switching to a primitive society? I think the problem comes from the one area we're not allowed to actually ever attack, and that is democracy itself. Democracy is the problem. You see, in democracy, we talk about a constitution. But it's not a constitution which is actually of fundamental importance. It's justice, which is of fundamental importance. And justice happens to be very well defined, and specifically well defined for the anti-corruption laws. So you see, justice basically means that you have the right to do something when you do it, and you're not engaged in a trespass. When you're trespassing, it's unjust. When you have the right to do it, it's just. So, if I go to a store and I say to the store owner, that guy over there is going to buy the bag of chips, that's trespassing. I don't have the right to have that guy over there buy my bag of, force that guy over there to buy my bag of chips. So what you start to see is that the problem is third parties. You can particularly see this with the anti-corruption laws. See, the anti-corruption laws are extortion, which means to obtain, under the color, which means for private third-party benefit, of official right, which means with an official act. So when you have politicians taking or withholding official acts in order to pass laws which obtain rights and property and actions of different people for the benefit of other private individuals, what you have is you have a system of corruption rather than a system of justice. Because again, with justice, all you need is really the one law: no trespassing. So it seems to me that in order to have a system where we want to live in our society instead of in a primitive society, we should have a kingdom. Because in a kingdom, we will have justice. So let's just take a look at a typical criminal trial, which has a judge alone for the trial. The judge is going to be the judge of law. The judge is going to be judge of fact, and the judge is going to be executioner because the judge is going to impose this punishment. Now, someone might say, oh, wait a minute, okay, no, like the prison department is going to deal with the prisoner, and therefore the judge is not judge, jury, and executioner. But that means that his judge is now starting to represent himself when he's on the bench taking or withholding official acts. That would be corruption. What you want to have is a kingdom where you recognize that the judge on the bench actually is a representative of His Majesty the King. Which is why in olden days, the judges used to wear wigs, so that way they couldn't be identified, because they weren't supposed to be representing themselves, they're only supposed to represent His Majesty the King. And then you'd see that if the judge was also the jury, that would make His Majesty the King judge and jury. And then clearly the prisons would also be owned by the king, so that would make the king judge, jury, and executioner. So now we clearly have tyranny. It's so obvious. But we need to have a kingdom in order for that to be clear. Because only with a kingdom can we see and understand justice. God save the king.